Hello my dear friends and welcome to my channel. My name is Barbara and today we're going to be looking at Saturn in the 8th house. So this video is for you if you do have this placement. If you're a cross watcher, welcome as well. If you're interested in learning more about Saturn after this video, definitely check out a video that I previously recorded all about Saturn transits, the karma. I'm pretty sure it's called Let's Talk About Saturn. I will place it in the description box below, so you guys can definitely check that out. I also talk about Saturn return on there, so really good information. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. This is going to be an intense placement, you guys. We're going to look at first what Saturn means, then what the 8th house means, and what all of this means together. So Saturn basically is the planet of karma, okay? It's the planet of karma, it's the planet of rules, regulations, responsibilities. It's going to be the area where you're going to be restricted in your life. But what I will tell you guys, I like to look at things positively. So a positive aspect of Saturn is that it basically rewards you for whatever lesson you're meant to master, okay? That's the way that I see it. So basically it's the area that you're meant to master in this lifetime. So for you guys, it's going to be the 8th house. You guys are meant to master this area in this lifetime. And because Saturn operates over a longer period of time, I'm sure you guys see the little fluffs flying around. Anyways, Saturn operates over a longer period of time. So it basically delays the gratification, the rewards. But if you put in the work and you put in that hard work and that effort, you will reap those rewards that Saturn is here to show you. So the 8th house deals with all things that are Scorpionic-like, okay? It is ruled by the sign of Scorpio. It deals with your sexuality. It deals with death, rebirth, transformation. It deals with your finances, specifically joint finances. It can deal with inheritances. It can deal with the occult or astrology. Okay, you guys could have an interest in this. So this is really what the 8th house is all about. I do have a video, okay, where I talk more about Scorpio in depth. Okay, I'll put that also in the description box below because today I'm really going to scratch the surface really with what that whole Scorpionic energy is all about. If you guys have anything that resonates in this particular video and you want to learn even more about that 8th house Scorpio energy, definitely check out that video as well. I go super in depth. So basically, for those of you who do have this placement, Saturn in the 8th house, there's usually something that happens at an early age that basically restricts you guys in the area of intimacy. But it's not just sexual intimacy, it's even intimacy in terms of being in a partnership, being able to be open and vulnerable and, you know, express your emotions to people. That's the whole thing, because Scorpio very much is a mind, body, spirit connection type of sign. You need to have all three things on board to basically connect with another person. A lot of the time, I connect the Scorpionic energy with the Sacral Chakra. That's what I talk about more in that video that I mentioned earlier. So that's the thing with the Scorpionic energy. Basically, it affects and it wounds your Sacral Chakra, Saturn in the 8th house. So what does this mean? You might have issues again with expressing your emotions, any type of emotions, okay? Vulnerability. It could even be like, hey, I like you. You could have a hard time expressing this. And later on, it could affect your sexuality as well. There could have been some sort of trigger warning sexual abuse that may have taken place when you were younger. It could have been covert sexual abuse as well. Keep that in mind. That's a big one that wounds the sacral chakra without people realizing. When it's covert, when it's hidden. It can be any sort of circumstance, either if you were shamed, let's say you were, interested in learning about something, maybe you were reading a book and you're like, hey mom, what does this word mean? And then whatever, one of your parents was like, no, we're not talking about that word, like that's a gross word or whatever, however it may have manifested, that's covert, okay, it's hidden. You wouldn't think that this would affect the child because then the child internalizes shame. They're kind of like, oh my gosh, I shouldn't ask about this word. I shouldn't talk about these things. It could also be things like people commenting on your body, on your appearance. People maybe not giving you privacy in situations where it's like maybe you're changing, right? So that's more covert, it's hidden. It's maybe not something where you would be like, oh, okay, someone did this to me and I'm able to pinpoint it. A lot of the time, the covert moments in life actually are the ones that are the most hardest to uncover because it's the way that it made you feel, right? And you internalize this emotion and now you associate that every time the situation comes up. So there could be issues around sexuality. There's always some sort of karma around sexuality when you do have this placement, Saturn in the 8th house. It can really go on a range. The hardest lesson for you guys to learn and master is basically being able to master a connection with a person that is going to be emotional, physical, sexual, mental, all of the things. Okay, that's what Scorpio is looking for. But a lot of the time when that 8th house is wounded, Scorpio can go into either extreme. So they can go into the extreme of either being asexual or celibate, right? Where they're kind of like, I'm not engaging in this at all, and you're gonna basically convince yourself of different stories. That's the thing, because it's like the ego mind is always going to justify anything that we're feeling internally. So you'll find different reasons to place that on that, but it's kind of like there's still a focus on it. It's like there's usually a natural progression to life if we really look at it. We start dating, maybe you start experimenting, and there's just like a natural progression that happens. And it's kind of like people who have Saturn in the 8th house are restricted in this area. There's something, again, that could have taken place that restricts you. Because Saturn does deal with authority figures, okay, there could have been something that took place with someone who was an authority figure within your life. Now, this could have been on a scale, who that could have been. It could have been a teacher, it could have been a babysitter, it could have been a parent, okay, it could have been another family member. So there's always something going on with some form of authority figure. And the thing is also, these authority figures, because usually Saturn is ruled by the father, but it's not necessarily just going to be the father, it's going to be whoever was the dominant masculine role in your life. When you were young, maybe you were a very emotional child, and whoever was that dominant masculine role in your life is suppressed this. So it's like now you struggle with expressing your emotions. You could struggle with things like codependency. That's a huge thing, okay? Especially in the wounding of the sacral, and especially with scorpionic energy. You could struggle with codependency because it's like there's this overflowing. That's the way that I see the sacral chakra when it's in its shadow state. It goes into this overflowing energy. It's like a cup of water where it's overflowing. And it's like the energy basically has to come out in one way, shape, or form. But if it doesn't come out and it gets expressed in a positive way, it usually goes into the shadow aspects of whatever that particular sign is. Kind of like maybe you were very emotional. Maybe, again, you needed someone to hold space for you. Wasn't the space for that. There wasn't someone who was able to hold space. And it's like, again, the emotions get bottled up. You know, they go inside and they have to find a way to come out. And a lot of the time it might fall into codependency, it might fall into overgiving, it might fall into people pleasing, or you could fully shut off. That's the thing, it goes on either extreme, I find, when you have Saturn in the 8th house, because sometimes these people are going to even fall into things like sex work. And it's interesting because it's kind of like when you fall into that extreme version of sexuality, there's several things that are happening. A lot of the time you're trying to correct whatever experiences happened to you. You're trying to basically be in your power in that particular situation. So you're trying to take control of the situation. That's what tends to happen when you have that Saturn in the 8th house. You're kind of going to go through these extremes, because Scorpio is also extreme, where it's like you might go from extreme hypersexuality into extreme celibacy and then go back, and it's like you're really, really trying to master that sexual energy. And it's like the sexual energy is so, so important because it is your creator's energy and it's your manifestor's energy. And when that sacral chakra is wounded, which a lot of people in the collective have this wound, okay, it's one of the great collective wounds. I talk about this a lot, actually. And it's like when you have that wound, however that wound gets expressed, whether it's codependency, whether it is, again, just shutting off emotionally from people, whether it's having that disconnect, okay, not being able to connect mind, body, spirit together, it's basically going to be hindering your ability to manifest. And that's the whole thing with Saturn in the 8th. You're basically meant to learn alchemy, is really what that is. You're meant to learn energy work, energy transmutation, manifestation, all these things, but it's hard to learn that when the sacral chakra is wounded. There's going to have to be a deep healing around the sacral chakra when you do have this placement. If any of this is resonating for you guys, definitely look up sacral chakra, what that means, how to heal it, how to balance it, how to work with the energy, because the thing is, the sexual energy is the most powerful energy on the planet. It's wounded in the collective overall. I have touched on this several times, but probably in that video that I told you guys to check out as well. I've probably talked about it in there as well. And it's like, it's the most powerful energy on the planet because it brings through souls. So when this chakra is wounded, it hinders your ability, right, to manifest, to enjoy, right? That's what the sacral chakra is all about. It's the pleasures in life. And it's kind of like, you know, you guys are always going to struggle with that merging of the worlds, you know, being able to be in that mind, body, spirit connection, which is what you guys ultimately are seeking. But it's like these people can really shut off emotions and go into just sexuality, or the opposite. You guys might go into overly emotional and not be able to merge the two worlds together. That's the whole thing here. That's really the lesson. And that's the thing you guys are meant to master when you do have Saturn in the 8th house. I do hope that you guys did enjoy my video here. If you did, please do like, share, and subscribe. You guys can let me know in the comments below as well. And I hope you all have a beautiful rest of the day.